Energy is a catalyst to economic diversification and job creation. Demand for electricity in 2015 stood at 1,949 megawatts and is projected to increase to 3,000 megawatts by 2020. I meet Zambians from all walks of life who share their frustration with me on the ongoing load shedding and how this is negatively affecting their lives and businesses, whether big or small. We are still in the wake of the unavoidable but disruptive load shedding that the country has experienced since 2015. This energy crisis has played a part in our economic downturn over the past months. This is because beyond the expanded activities in the mining sector and other areas of the economy, there has also been an increase in household electricity connectivity, all of us drawing from the same and almost static source of power. I'm also aware that the current power shortage has negatively affected those running small businesses like salons, barbershops. This was mainly due to our overdependence on hydropower as a source of energy.
In a nutshell, load shedding is a deliberate shutdown of electric power, and it's done at distribution level, generally to try and prevent the collapse of the power system. So this is only attributed to when we have a deficit in generation against the demand. That means the current power available from our sources, the hydropower stations, cannot meet what is to be consumed by the people.
The current situation of a grid-based electricity supply is under stress.
For example, if we are to go into 19 hours and we don't load shed, it means the available generation will be so constrained that we will now need to look for power somewhere. So the system will start collapsing, and the resultant of that is daily blackouts, which will affect a lot of the industries, a lot of the people's lives, because to restart a system, it also takes a bit of time.
And with the unpredictable nature of our rainfall patterns, we will need to rethink electricity supply in Zambia.
We expect that after full commissioning of the active projects, which are mainly hydro, and the solar projects that are coming on, we should see a significant reduction in the deficit that is being experienced.
The government, given an environment, a suitable working environment, would love this load shedding to be done by today. But however, there will be continued investment into the sector because all the parameters are changing on a daily basis.
I know how it feels to come back home and find that there is no electricity. Apart from the low water levels in Lake Kariba and Kafue River, the power shortage has been occasioned and exacerbated by Zambia's inability over the years to attract new investments in the electric generation sector on account of the low electricity tariffs.
What it basically means to have a cost-reflective tariff is to have a tariff that is able to cover the cost of your operations.
To promote more private investment in electricity generation, government is implementing a gradual migration towards a cost-reflective tariff regime.
When our costs increase, we then have to increase the price of our product in order to balance up and be able to meet our obligations.
This might appear as a harsh decision on the part of government in the short term. However, in the long term, the country will benefit from increased investment in the sector, which will generate the much needed electricity for industrialization and diversification program. Thereby, we will be able to create more jobs and improve the well-being of our people.
In 1964, the installed capacity was about 70 megawatts, which grew to about 1,700 in 2011. Then with the coming in of Kariba North Bank, we were sitting around 2,000 in 2015. After 2015, of course, we've had many more projects that are still, some of which are still ongoing.
If you look at 2014, we had about 660,000 customers. But now we are talking about more than 1 million customers. Lusaka takes about 40% of what the whole country needs.
The demand increased more after 2010, but before that we were seeing a much lower demand than the installed capacity. The approximate demand now is above 2,000. We are now standing at about 2,700 installed capacity. That's with the coming in of the IPPs and also the ZESCO initiatives of increasing the installed capacity.
In 2014, we only had about 24% of access to connection throughout the country, which was average, and that was translating to about 4% for the rural, and for the urban just slightly above 50%. But obviously over time, in the last 5 years, that number has slightly improved to about 31%, which represents about 4% of the rural and 67% of the urban. But if you look at the statistics, the problem is still huge, because you are talking about only 31% of the people having access to electricity, which essentially means that about 7.2 million of the people in Zambia are still without electricity. But we are aware that government has set a very high priority to make sure that these figures change, and in that regard, government has declared that we need to have universal access to electricity throughout the country by 2030. In the last 5 years, we have connected the Lukulu district to the national grid. Our colleagues RIA also connected Luampa district just in 2018. And currently we are just finishing up the project to connect 2 more districts, which will be connected by March this year. We're talking about Skongo as well as Nalolo. If you look at Eastern Province, in the last 5 years, we've managed to go with 330 kV line right up to Chipata, and we have managed to ring a number of places, both at 33 kV and 11. You look at, for example, the line that we're currently doing from Lusaka right into Luangwa. This project is 90% done. We have already connected Rufunsa on the national grid. They've never had power until last year. You cannot increase access to electricity if the main stem is not done. And so you need to do projects for you to go to the sub-bombers, to the rural, to make sure that you connect the customers. Whether you are connecting to the grid or off-grid, you still need to do a project.
In 2015, His Excellency the President directed the Industrial Development Corporation to invest in grid-scale solar. This was following the energy crisis that we had following poor rainfalls. The idea that His Excellency the President had was to diversify Zambia's energy mix. As you may be aware, over 90% of our power comes from hydro, and that makes us very vulnerable to climatic disruptions. IDC embarked on a partnership with the International Finance Corporation, with the World Bank, and other development finance institutions to bring to life Zambia's first ever grid-scale solar projects.
In line with the diversification agenda, government has begun to actively pursue alternative sources of energy, such as thermal, solar, wind, and biomass. Government, through the Industrial Development Corporation, is implementing solar-based renewable energy programs to redress the current power deficit. This solar project will add 600 megawatts to the national power grid.
We identified 2 developers to work with. One was NL, which is a big company involved in renewable energy, and the other one was Neoin. And with Neoin, we invested in a solar project, which we call the Bangweulu solar project, and with NL, we invested in a project we call the Ngonye solar project. Both these projects are located in the Lusaka South M phase. Together, the 2 projects are powering approximately 40,000 homes in this country. In other words, the energy crisis that we had now the load management would have been a whole lot worse if these projects were not in place. The total investment that we made with our partners was, for the two projects, was $100 million US.
Government is working with the private sector to expand power generation at the Kafue Lower Hydropower Plant, which upon construction will generate an additional 750 megawatts of electricity. The installation of 2 generators at the Kariba North Bank in 2013 and 2014 was a strategic investment which increased power generation by an extra 360 megawatts. In Luapula province, government has engaged the private sector to construct 150 megawatts at Kalungwishi hydropower station. Alongside the construction of the new hydropower stations, government is also rehabilitating the old power stations, and this has been the operating of the Kafue Gorge power station from producing 900 to 990 megawatts. The reinstating of the Victoria Falls power station to its full generating capacity of 180 megawatts and the operating of the Kariba North Bank power station from 600 to 720 megawatts are all part of the robust government interventions to increase Zambia's installed hydropower capacity. We must now pronounce clearly that the nation's energy strategy will be a combination of clean, renewable energies alongside the grid.
We are trying to promote an energy mix as per government policy, and that will see us realizing into this, managing the deficit for the future.
Currently, ZESCO is quite active in the projects. The one that comes to mind and that's very prominent is the Kafue Gorge Lower. The capacity is 750 megawatts, and the expected completion is end of 2020. Being completed in this quarter or next quarter is Luswasi Upper. It's 15 megawatt capacity. The third one that ZESCO will be undertaking soon is Luswasi Lower. It's 86 megawatts. The other one that will be coming on soon is Chishimba project, which will bring in 15 megawatts. Some solar projects will be coming on in addition to what I've just mentioned. So we're looking at above 800 megawatts as the capacity that will be coming on board in the next 2 years.
Most of our generating stations are sitting on the south of the country. What is the government doing? It's supporting the cascaded system on the Zambezi River. It's supporting the cascaded system on the Kafue River system. On the Zambezi River, we'll see the birth of Batoka, and which is a project under commitment between Zambian government and the Zimbabwean government.
To meet the increase in demand, investments in energy projects are ongoing so far. The Itezhi hydropower plant, developed under a public-private partnership, is now operational and has added 120 megawatts to the national grid.
New plants have opened, I think, starting 2013. We started seeing new plants coming online. There was Kariba North Bank Extension, Tezhi Power Corporation there, and Ndola Energy came online. We've got small plants like Shiwangandu and a bit of extra capacity coming in from some of our small hydros up in the northern part of the country.
ZESCO has agreements to purchase power from a number of IPPs. The biggest one is the Thermo power plant, which is with a capacity of 300 megawatts. The second one is Ndola Energy at 105 megawatts. The third one is Thermo Power Corporation, which is actually co-owned ZESCO and Tata of India. The capacity is 120 megawatts. The fourth one, Lunsefo hydropower plant, which is about 56 megawatts. Then in terms of solar, there are two solar power plants, the Ngoni and Bangweulu, where ZESCO is getting a combined total of 82 megawatts.
To ensure that our citizens in the rural areas are not left behind, government will continue promoting and expanding rural electrification programs, which will increase access to electricity by rural communities at an affordable cost. Under the rural electrification program, 19 grid extension projects are being implemented. These include Nilenge Grid Extension Project, Kasanjika Mini Hydro Power Station in Munlunga District of Northwestern Province, and the Chunga Solar Mini Grid in Mombwa District. As at 31st December 2016, 7 grid extension projects were completed. These include the Mushindamo Grid Extension Project, Muinuna Grid Extension Project, Kankolonkolo Grid Extension Project.
At the current rate in the development of power in the country, we are expected to have more than 6,000 megawatts by the year 2030 from all energy sources.
It's 90% of the urban must be electrified by 2030 and about 50% of the rural.
It's true, we are moving with a vision 2030 because if you look at some of these projections, we might see an addition of over 2,000 megawatts of energy being added to the network, and that's something that everyone will be smiling about. The load shedding issue is an unfortunate issue, but however, the best is yet to come for all of us to enjoy and to be able to have available energy 24 hours.
But the major projects, I think by the end of this year, we are going to have enough capacity such that even if our production was at 50%, 100% of the 32% households that are connected to electricity will receive power 24/7. If we have to achieve Vision 2030, we need 100% of homes to have access to, for example, electricity, and you need to grow production by more than 300%.
We have continued with our investment in the renewable energy space. We are working with partners to establish an intermediary company to be called the Africa Green Corps that will be a buyer of solar and will sign power purchase agreements with independent power producers. We expect that once this is rolled out, we should see a number of projects in the solar energy space coming up.
Recently signed contracts with Russian Rosatom to create a Center for Nuclear Science and Technology to also do research and see ways of using nuclear energy as a source of energy. Those are the positive things that we are looking at in the long term.
In this regard, I'm happy to announce that we have good progress with nuclear energy partners, both at government and private sector level.
We are on path. Of course, you are looking at long-term plans, like in the 10 years, but at least the steps have been started. The creation of the Center for Nuclear Science and Technology, then the actual construction of the nuclear power plant with enough water and land in the northern circuit, where we can place the NPP, and we hope these dreams come through.
We are committed to ensuring that energy security is assured in the short to the medium term, and we are going to have a diversified energy mix, including nuclear energy.
The major emphasis is not only to provide enough energy for Zambia, but to make energy sector a source of forex.
I am certain that with these measures we have taken, we'll soon have a gradual reduction of power shortage, leading to an eventual surplus. Zambia shall become a net exporter of energy.